How's it going? Diallo here from RT Sport, and I'm back at Vers-sur-Marne where the rowing and canoeing is taking place at Paris 2024. I'm on the canoeing side of it, as you can see behind me here, the white water. And what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be speaking to 1992 and 1996 Olympian Mike Corcoran, whose two daughters are taking part at Paris 2024, one in canoeing and one in kayaking. And we're going to talk about his experiences at the Olympics, how proud he is of his daughters taking part in these games, and also about what he's been doing away from sport as well. He's long retired, but he's recently got an award from the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, so we're going to get a little bit of insight into the story behind that. Corcoran, delighted to be joined by you here now. First off, just this venue that you can see around you, it's amazing, isn't it?
It's incredible. They've done a brilliant job here with getting as many spectators into the course as possible. These bleachers are quite high and everyone has a good vantage of the slalom course.
Yeah, and what we're about to see today is the kayak cross. So this is new to the Olympics. How's Madison building up to this now?
I think she's really excited for it. It's the first time kayak cross is in the Olympics, and it's a new type of slalom, but it's quite exciting, and it's a contact sport.
Yeah, and you have the unique privilege of seeing two of your daughters competing in the Olympics. So Madison and Michaela, one doing the canoe, the other doing the kayak. How proud are you? Because we'll talk about your own personal history with the Olympics, but it's a huge thing, I suppose, as a family.
Yes, very proud, obviously. Madison got selected in September, and it took Michaela many more months for her spot to come open, and it did, and both of them are here, and they performed pretty well, considering it's their first Olympics and they're only 21 years old.
Yeah, and I believe they got into canoeing and the kayak side of it when they were aged 4. Obviously, with your own background, and I suppose that played a part, but did they take to the water immediately?
Yeah, so the neighbourhood we live in outside of Washington DC is right on the Potomac River, and so it's a natural playground to bring them down to the river. And when they were 4, they liked to come out with me on the boat and play around and swim.
Yeah, and something I noticed with the Hendrick brothers, the twins as well, when they were young, they were separated into the canoe and kayak. So one did C1 and K1, and the other did K1 very much straight away. And they did it, I think, because they didn't want them competing at such a young age. Did you separate your twins out for the same reason?
Well, actually, their coach suggested that they switched. That Michaela switched to C1, that she might enjoy it more, and because I did it in 92 and 96, but also that they wouldn't be competing against each other.
Yeah. And being here today, does it bring back memories of 92 and 96 for you?
Of course it does. It's fantastic to be here. It's my first time at an Olympics as a spectator, so being a competitor is a different feeling, but this is exciting as well as competing.
Yeah, and your own beginnings, I suppose, in canoeing. It was age 16. Like, how did that start way back in Dublin?
It's a kind of long story, but it started with I wanted to buy a model airplane, and I worked in a pub and I didn't have enough money to buy a model airplane, so I bought a boat. Joined Wildwater Kayak Club, and then the rest is history.
Yeah, and then you left Glasnevin at a very young age to go to the United States, and it was for canoeing purposes, but my understanding is you were only supposed to go for a very short period, and 36 years later you've never left.
Yeah, that's right. I only went for 9 months, and then I decided, like, if I could stay here I would. Then I got a Donnelly visa kind of unexpectedly in 1990, and then I decided I would go to college and get my degree there and continue to train with members of the US team. So that's how it all evolved.
Yeah. And I suppose becoming an Olympian and representing Ireland, what was the pathway for that at the time?
Well, for the 92 Olympics you had to have a top 8 at a World Cup, and in Nottingham in 92, 2 months before the Olympics, I came 4th, so I punched my ticket then. But really it's just training and being on the Irish team and competing in World Cups prior to that and World Championships.
Yeah, and the whole time you maintained a connection with Ireland. I know once your kids were born anyway, you had them christened in Glasnevin, I believe, and you come back pretty much every year.
Yeah, we try to get back every year. I want them to feel like it's home for them, and it's home for me still, even though I spend most of my time in the US. We're also looking at buying a house in Dublin. And Michaela, when she finishes her studies, wants to move to Ireland, so it's drawn us back.
Yeah, and I suppose going back to 92 and 96, because like for your daughters, this is a new experience for them as Olympians. Was it a blur in 1992? I know you were kind of like bumping into members of the US basketball dream team and different things like that. But how did you take it in?
Well, the opening ceremony was probably the most exciting thing I've ever been to. When they lit the flame with a archer, that was fantastic. But really, in the slalom, you're competing with the guys you compete with at World Cup. So I really had a blast. It was really enjoyable, and there was no nerves for me at that race. And I had a controversial penalty, put me from 3rd to 12th. So it kind of energized me to keep going.
Yeah, and for 96 then you went from 12th to 10th as well. Was that just having had that previous experience, it kind of helped the fact that you had an Olympics under your belt anyway?
I don't know. I think, slalom is a sport of the least amount of mistakes, usually is the winner. And I had a really good first run, except for one large mistake that put me in 10th. I didn't have any penalties, but I got stuck in a stopper. The Olympics is very different than World Cups or World Champs. To me, the Olympics is more of a show, and you're here to put on a performance. That's how I felt, so I wasn't very nervous for it.
Yeah, and I suppose for Madison and Michaela, they're living in the social media age, so any support they get, they see it directly. I'm old enough to remember 96 and to a degree 92. I was about 3 at the time, so probably memories aren't great. But how did you feel that sense of support from Ireland? I mean, I guess phones, mail, different things like that?
We had access to newspapers as well, but the support from Canoeing Ireland at the time was immense, and also support from Sport Ireland. It was CUSPR at the time. It was developing stronger and stronger support networks for athletes. I've had a great time. I think the support now for athletes with Team Ireland and Canoeing Ireland and Sport Ireland is fantastic, and you're starting to see results. You're starting to see more and more medals.
Yeah, and you've given your own support, I believe, to Liam Jagu as well. How did that begin?
Well, I was asked to support him, and I started sponsoring him in 2018, and it's just kind of continued from there. I know what it's like to kind of scrape by. We did it for my whole career, and I'm in a position now where I have a business and it's very successful, so I can also give back, and I support Canoeing Ireland as well, and I think that's the way to produce athletes, is you need to support them. And ideally Ireland would have an artificial course like this here in the Sport Ireland campus would produce Olympic champions for sure.
Yeah, and I suppose the prosthetics firm, that kind of leads it nicely to that. So that you founded in 2002. Can you just tell us about how you got into that, into that line of work, and how you built that company over the last 22 years?
Well, real briefly, I was working as a carpenter, and I did a job for a woman who owned a prosthetic business. She asked me if I'd like to do some fabrication on it, which I did. And then I went to college for prosthetics and orthotics in Chicago. Worked 5 years in Houston, and then came back to Washington and set up a company, and we won the contract for the US military at Walter Reed, and we worked 60-70 hour weeks for 15 years, and here we are.
Yeah, and you got an award from the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky very recently for the work you've done in terms of helping Ukrainian soldiers. How did that come about?
Well, based on our experience of working with blast injuries and combat injuries with the United States military, when Russia invaded Ukraine, I felt very strongly that this was wrong, and that we made overtures to Ukrainians that we would treat their soldiers for free if they could get them over to the United States, which they did. And we've been treating over 70 soldiers now in Washington and in Malta, and we intend on opening up a facility in Kyiv to train their prosthetists and also treat their soldiers.
Yeah, and how emotional has it been when you have met some of the soldiers that you have, that, you know, through your company, that you have helped?
Oh, it's very rewarding to help. You know, like the juxtaposition of the Olympics and what's going on in Ukraine right now is so striking. It's very exciting to be here, but people need to understand that Russians and Putin's forces are killing Ukrainian civilians and Ukrainian soldiers who are defending their homeland. And it should not be forgotten, even during this great time, that the sacrifices that people are making for freedom.
Yeah, and I suppose the juxtaposition you talk about as well. This is I suppose, an event that brings the whole world together. That's what it's supposed to be about. And I suppose you feel that resonates strongly then.
Yes, exactly. And our Ukrainian athletes here on the water as well, which They're very brave. And in fact, one of the Ukrainian Olympians was supposed to be here, but he was killed earlier this year in a firefight in Ukraine. So I'm glad no Russians are here. And I think the IOC needs to take a stronger standpoint on this. And they try and shy away saying they don't want to mix politics and sport, but this is not politics, this is an invasion. And World War II wasn't politics, but if this carries on, that's what it'll end up being in World War III, and I fear that.
Yeah, do you feel the response from the IOC where Russia is not here under their own flag is appropriate enough?
I think it's a pass. I think they're giving Russia a pass. It's not appropriate enough. They should have just called them out and banned them and say, no, we're not putting up with this.
Okay, and I suppose back to yourself, Madison is going in the kayak cross very, very shortly. Just as as an event as a whole, how have you found the entire Olympics as an experience? I suppose as a parent watching on.
Well, as a parent watching on, it's extremely nerve-wracking. You're watching your kids on the water, and you've no control over what they do or what's happening. And I always felt, as an athlete, I was in control. I wasn't so nervous, but as a parent, I just like doing a lot of nail biting. But I hope they're enjoying it, and it'll be a lifetime memory.
I suppose the response from back home, how have you found it in terms of how they've been responding, not just to your own daughters, but I suppose to the entire canoeing and kayak team here as well?
Well, I think the Irish public are behind every athlete that's representing Ireland. And I also, tremendous support, and you see it on social media that we didn't see back in the 90s, there was none. So it's really gratifying to see so many people behind Irish sports people.
All right, well, thank you very much for your time, and I hope you enjoy the event here today.
Thanks a lot.